Welcome back. Today, a small thing that saves you a lot of typing, the @mention. By the end of this lesson, you will know a small trick that saves you a remarkable amount of typing, the @mention. It lets you point at a file by name, without ever typing out its full path. It is one of those tiny habits that, once you learn it, you will use every single day without thinking. And it does something else too, it tells OpenCode exactly where to look. Here is a problem you will meet again and again. You want to ask OpenCode about a file, so you start typing its path, folder names, slashes, the file name, maybe even the extension. It is slow. It is easy to get wrong. One mistyped character and nothing matches. And if the file is buried deep inside several folders, that path can be long, painful, and frankly a little frustrating to type out every single time. The @mention fixes all of that. Here is what it is. You type the symbol, the same one you see in email addresses, and then you start typing the name of the file you mean. That is the whole gesture. The symbol, followed by a file name. OpenCode immediately understands that you are pointing at a file, not typing ordinary words. It is a small piece of grammar that changes how you talk to OpenCode. Here is where it gets clever. You do not need to type the whole file name, not even close. You type the symbol, then just a few letters, and OpenCode searches for files that match. Type the symbol and the letters RE, and it finds anything containing those letters, a README, a render script, a report. It narrows down as you type more. You almost never type a full name. A few characters is usually enough. Think about what you just avoided. Instead of typing a long, error-prone path, folder, slash, file name, you type the symbol and the word main. Two short pieces instead of a long chain of folders and slashes. That difference adds up fast. Every time you reference a file, you save yourself a small headache. And over a day, those tiny savings become something you genuinely feel. But the @mention does more than save you typing. It does something more important. When you point at a file, you are telling OpenCode, look here. Read this. This file matters for what I am about to ask. The contents of that file become part of the context OpenCode works with. So your question is no longer floating in the air. It is grounded in a real file, with real contents, that OpenCode can actually read and reason about. Here is how this connects to the command you designed last lesson. You built /review, your careful code reviewer. Now you can point it at a specific file. You type the symbol, the file name, and then /review. OpenCode reads that file first, and then runs your reviewer on it. One short line, and your command knows exactly which file to look at. No copying, no pasting, no long paths, just point, and ask. You can use the @mention inside any ordinary prompt, not just with commands. Suppose you want OpenCode to explain a file. You type the symbol, the file name, and then the words, explain this file. OpenCode reads the file you pointed at and answers your question. The @mention works anywhere you type to OpenCode. Whenever a file is part of what you are asking about, point at it instead of describing it in words. Here is something useful. You are not limited to one file, you can point at several files in the same message. Type the symbol in the first file name, then the symbol in a second one, and so on. OpenCode reads all of them. This is wonderful when you want OpenCode to understand how two files relate to each other, say, a file and the test that checks it. Point at both, ask your question, and OpenCode sees the full picture. You might wonder, why not just open the file, copy its contents, and paste them into your message? You could. But the @mention is cleaner. You do not clutter your message with walls of text. You do not risk copying only part of the file by accident. And if the file is large, pasting is genuinely impractical. Pointing with the symbol keeps your message short and clear, while still giving OpenCode everything it needs. Here is why this matters so much for your commands. A command like /review is only useful if it knows which file to look at. Without the @mention, you would have to describe the file in words, or paste its contents, every single time. With the @mention, your commands become precise, they target exactly the file you point at. That is what turns a generic command into a sharp, focused tool you reach for without thinking. Let me give you something concrete to try. Create a small file in your folder, a few lines of anything, a short note, a tiny bit of code. Now open OpenCode and type the symbol, followed by the first few letters of that file. Watch how quickly OpenCode finds it. Then ask OpenCode something about it. You will see the @mention working end to end, pointing, reading, answering, all in a few seconds. Let me say more about the search, because it is genuinely forgiving. You do not need the exact name. You do not even need to spell it perfectly. Type the symbol and something close, a few letters from the middle of the name, the first part, an abbreviation you remember. OpenCode looks for files that contain what you typed, anywhere in their name. It is fuzzy on purpose, because it is trying to save you effort, not test your memory. So what actually happens when you point at a file? OpenCode reads it. The full contents become part of the context, the working memory OpenCode uses to answer you. When you ask a question, OpenCode is no longer guessing. It has the real file in front of it. That is why its answers become specific and grounded, instead of vague and generic. The file you pointed at is the difference between a guess and a real answer. Here is my honest advice. Make the @mention a habit from the very start. Every single time you are about to reference a file, in a prompt, in a command, anywhere, reach for the symbol instead of typing a path. It takes a day or two to become automatic, and then you never think about it again. The people who skip it end up typing long paths for weeks, wondering why it feels clunky. Save yourself that. Start the habit now. So when should you reach for the @mention? The honest answer is, any time a file is part of what you are asking about. If your question involves a specific file, point at it. If you are running a command like /review on a particular file, point at it first. If you want OpenCode to compare two files, point at both. The rule is simple and it never changes. If a file matters to your request, the @mention belongs in your message. Let me tie it together with the shape of what happens. You type the @mention and a file name. OpenCode finds that file on your disk and reads it. The file's contents enter the context. And now, whatever you ask, a question, a command, a request for review, OpenCode has the real file to work with. Point, read, answer. That three-step flow is the whole idea, and it is the foundation of everything you will do with files in OpenCode. Let me recap the whole lesson. The @mention is the symbol followed by a file name. You do not need the exact name, a few letters is enough, because the search is fuzzy. Pointing at a file feeds its contents into the context, so OpenCode reads it before it answers. And you can point at more than one file at a time. That is the entire tool, small, fast, and something you will use constantly. Now it is your turn. Create a small file in your folder, anything will do. Open OpenCode. Type the symbol and the first few letters of your file. Pick it from what OpenCode finds. Then ask OpenCode to explain the file, or run /review on it. Watch how OpenCode reads the file and gives you an answer grounded in its real contents. Try it 2 or 3 times until the gesture feels natural. Here are a few words worth holding on to. The @mention, the symbol followed by a file name, used to point at a file. Fuzzy search, a forgiving search that finds files even if you only type part of the name. Context, the working memory OpenCode uses when it answers you, which now includes the file you pointed at. And file reference, pointing at a file instead of describing it in words. The @mention is one of those small things that quietly changes your whole experience with OpenCode. You stop typing long paths. You stop copying and pasting file contents. You just point, 2 characters and a few letters, and OpenCode knows exactly where to look. Point, do not type. Make it a habit today, and it will save you time every single day from here on. That is the entire lesson, in 4 words. Think of the @mention as a beam of light aimed at a single file. Everything else quiets down, and that one file glows, clear, precise, ready to be read. That focus is its quiet power. A thread of light connects you to your file. You reach out with just 2 characters, and the file answers with its full contents. That quiet connection is the whole idea behind the @mention. You never hunt for a file. You type a few letters, and it appears almost instantly, found, waiting, ready to be pointed at. The search does the hard work, so your fingers do not have to. Imagine a single file under a warm spotlight. Out of dozens sitting on your disk, this is the one that matters right now. The @mention is how you cast that light, with almost no effort. 2 characters, and your aim is true. No wandering through folders, no guessing at paths, just a clean, precise pointer straight at the file you mean. That precision saves you time, every day. Thanks for spending this time with me. Next, you ask OpenCode to read a file for you. That is a wrap. If you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe for more.